I call the May 4th meeting of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement to order. A quorum is present. The first item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes for April 17th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Representative Nelson moves to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the minutes are adopted. Oops, excuse me. Members, we do have a short agenda today. We will not be taking action on the bill in front of us. However, we will discuss it, take public testimony, and consider amendments to the language. We want to, before I start that, I know that some of our members, just so that those who are here visiting today understand that we are in sort of that part of session where everybody is either on conference committees or in meetings trying to get the last bill set. So know that if people are coming in and out, it is not because they don't care about this issue that we're working on right now. It is because they do have other meetings that they have to go to in order for us to wrap up session on time. I know that Senator Frentz is actually triple booked right now, but he was, he's gonna probably be leaving in a second, but I just wanted to, so that we can all know that this issue is so important to us that we wanted to make sure that we held a hearing this year to have Representative Wolgamott present his bill. So with that, I'd like to let Representative Wolgamott, do you want to present from here or from the testifier suit? And so we will have Representative Wolgamott and Senator Cwodzinski present the bill. And so when you all are ready, please just introduce yourselves and then begin with your bill. And actually, you know what, I'm going to have, as you're getting settled, our Executive Director, Susan Lincheski, explain House File 3294, Senate File 3314. Ms. Lincheski.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be very quick so we can get to the senator and the representative. The bill does basically four things. It lowers the normal retirement age from 66 to 64 for Tier 2 teachers. It extends the end of the amortization period from 2048 to 2053. There's an error in my summary about that. The other plans are all at 2048, so this would make TRA an outlier, extending it for 5 years. It pays for the cost of the change in the normal retirement age with a 0.5% increase in the employee contribution rate that will take effect July 1, 2023, and a 1% increase in the employer contribution rate, also to take effect July 1, 2023. And then finally, it appropriates money, and it does the allocation through the pension adjustment revenue formula. So those numbers are not filled in at this time, but those are included in the bill. Oh, and I will note just one other item. At the end of my summary is a final page, which is a spreadsheet prepared by our actuary, Mark Schulte. And if Madam Chair would allow for it, we could have Mark come up and talk about this at some point in the presentation here.
Thank you, Ms. Lincheski. And we will go ahead and let Representative Wolgamott and Senator Cwodzinski introduce the bill.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the Commission, for the opportunity to present Senate File 3144. We are doing this with urgency, Madam Chair, because Minnesota's school staffing shortage is at a crisis level. Districts are scrambling to hire and keep teachers, and educators are leaving the profession in droves, and more college students are opting for different careers because we do not have a competitive package that will attract the best educators to the profession and keep them in our schools. One way that we can do this, Madam Chair, is by offering us sustainable pensions that recognize and reward educators' hard work on behalf of our students. A reliable pension that honors the work of teachers and school staff will help recruit and retain the best educators for our students. And you don't have to take my word for it, Madam Chair. Look at the teachers who are here today. Read your emails, listen to teachers all throughout every corner of our state who are showing that this is a top priority for them this year. And we're in a special crisis because unfortunately, we have a two-tiered system. It's the brunt of the effects of a decision to create two different groups of retirement that is really demonstrating an unfair and unreasonable disparity. Teachers hired just past an arbitrary deadline are realizing that they have to work 6 to 10 years longer for the same retirement benefit they've paid into that their colleagues who were hired just a bit earlier are able to enjoy. This is not fair, Madam Chair. Part of this unique position is that Minnesota went from having one of the best pension plans in the nation to one of the least flexible, hardest to use plans. We went from the rule of 90, which for those from the public who aren't familiar with the rule of 90, it's where if your age plus your years of service as a teacher add up to 90, you're able to collect retirement with no penalty. So for a teacher who started right out of college, this would mean flexibility as early as age 55. Now we're forcing teachers to hold on to age 66. 66 is higher than the average retirement age in the U.S. right now. Even with the rule of 90, though many could retire earlier, the average retirement age for TRA was 63. This bill, moving us to the retirement age of 64, gets us closer to what Minnesotans and Minnesota schools are used to. That's one thing our bill does, Madam Chair. It lowers the normal retirement age from teachers from 66 to 64. And then it changes the penalties to scale. So for example, retiring at age 60 would have the penalties that age 62 would have had. It raises the employer contribution by 1% and the employee contribution is raised by 0.5%. And this is one important but small step, Madam Chair. The work isn't going to stop here, and I know that there are a lot of teachers who took their time to be here today to let us know how important this is. To keep the teaching profession alive, we need to offer something that corporate America can't, a reasonable, fair public pension that rewards decades of service in an essential industry. So that's what the bill does, Madam Chair. That's why we're bringing it forward. We want to thank our teachers for their time, for being here today. We know how essential they are, how incredibly hard their jobs have become, even since I was in school, since you were in school, Madam Chair. So this bill is about teachers, it's about our students, it's about our future workforce. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm going to turn it over to my Senate offer, Senator Cwodzinski.
Senator Cwodzinski.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. It's been a pleasure and honor to work with you on our first bill we teamed up on. You know, I believe that the adage that the meaning of life is to solve as much of the puzzle as possible before we perish. We need to solve as much of the puzzle as possible before we perish. Teachers know that. That's why they have so many students every year that they have to try to solve as many of those puzzle pieces to make them become self-actualized. And I taught for 33 years. I was a Rule of 90 recipient. My wife taught for 20 years. She was not. I know the difference between these two retirement plans. I know them quite well. And the reason I co-authored this bill, or authored it in the Senate, is three simple reasons. Number one, when I first started teaching, all the subs in my building were 22, 23, 24-year-olds. They were hungry. They wanted to be a teacher. They wanted to work in the building and let us all experience teachers, see how hard they work, so that when their opening occurred the following June or September, we would look at them closely because we saw them in the class and we knew how hardworking they were. Those people don't exist anymore. They're not in our buildings. People aren't going into education anymore for the reasons that he brought up. And now who subs in our buildings are retired teachers. That's who are the building subs. They're retired teachers who are 60, 61, 62. If we have to rely on those building subs to be 67-year-olds and 68-year-olds, it's not going to happen, because under the current pension plan, when they hit 66, they're not going to come back then following September to be a sub or a long-term sub. Number two, the last few years, teachers have taken a great hit, along with nurses and police officers. Those three professions, we should be internally grateful for what they had to endure for the last couple years with all the unrest that this nation has gone through. And we owe it to them. We owe them a little piece of the bone. Here's what we can do for you now. We can lower the retirement age from 66, which is, as Representative said, is one of the highest in the nation. At least we can solve that puzzle piece where we'll lower it to 64. It's not ideal. It's not the best scenario, but it's what we can do here and now. We can solve that puzzle piece. And we sometimes might not always do the right thing, but it's so important that we do something. And this is that something that we can do this year. And lastly, I don't know why everybody's not jumping on board of this. Because the simple math behind this is so obvious to me. As someone that may be in an administrative position or a principal or a superintendent or a school board, our highest paid teachers generally make $20,000 to $40,000 more than a first-year teacher. They should be screaming, yeah, let's get those high-flying, top of the teacher schedule teachers out of the classroom and replace them with teachers that are going to make half as much money, because it makes common economic sense. And I'm shocked, and that's not what we should be guided by. We should be guided by the passion of the teacher, of course, but nonetheless, money matters and money talks. And so for those three reasons, I hope you guys take a deep, hard dive into passing, what is the Senate file number, the House file? Whatever, sorry.
Senate 3144.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cwodzinski. The passion is what matters, not the number, so.
Well
Thank you,
said.
Representative Wolgamott and Senator Cwodzinski. We will now, actually, I'm going to call Mr. Schulte out to just maybe go through the spreadsheet to sort of ground us before then we can move into the testimony. And that way we will have all the presentation done. And then we will go into the testimony of the testifiers here today. But I just want to draw, as Mr. Schulte moves up to the table, I want to draw everyone's attention to that. We did have about over 20 submissions of testimony, and that we printed those out, and they're in a binder being passed out down to the legislators to take a look at. But we also have a packet outside. And then our friends at admin also provided a packet of written testimony as well. So please make sure that you get a chance to look over that. It is invoices that are very important for us to take into consideration as we're hearing the bill today. Mr. Schulte, if you could just take a seat and introduce yourself and then walk through the spreadsheet for us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark Schulte from the Actuarial Solutions, the actuary for the LCPR. Glad to be here today, and just briefly want to go through this exhibit that's attached to the staff summary. And these are based on numbers originally provided to us by TRA showing the effect of changing the normal retirement age to 64, and then combining that with additional contributions of $145 million one-time payment, plus ongoing total 1.5% of pay contributions, which, as the proposed bill is drafted, are split 1% for employers, 0.5% for employees. Then I guess I would like to focus on line number 8, where it shows the contribution sufficiency deficiency. Under the baseline scenario, the first column, there's a contribution deficiency of about 1.05% of pay. Adding in the normal retirement age of 64 without any additional funding would increase that deficiency to 2.64%, so about 1.6% of additional pay. But if we have the additional 1.5% contributions from the employers and employees, plus the one-time $145 million, we see that that contribution deficiency then drops back down to about 1% of payroll. So the intent is to show that with these additional budgeted contributions, this is expected to be, I'll say, cost neutral, that it won't increase the contribution deficiency from the new baseline scenario.
Thank you, Mr. Schulte, and we will likely have more questions on this. Actually, Senator Rasmussen, can we get through the testifiers first, and then we can hold our questions for our authors and Mr. Schulte till the end? Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Yes.
One more comment, Chair.
Yes.
I will say too that I want to highlight that this also extends the amortization period as mentioned during the summary to 2053. And if we maintained the current 2048 amortization period, it's roughly 0.1% of payroll difference.
Thank you, Mr. Schulte. And we will, at the question and answer part, we will ask for some definitions of deficiency and amortization to help everybody have a better financial view of this situation. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to move over into our testifiers today. And so the first person I have is Lisa Olson, President of Elk River Education Association. And on deck is Rodney Rowe, Education Minnesota Secretary Treasurer. So if you can just be ready so that we can kind of get everybody quickly to the spots, that would be great. And please introduce yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative Herr and committee members. I am Lisa Olson. I'm a licensed teacher from ISD 728 the Elk River Area School District, where we serve more than 13,000 students in 20 schools by over 900 teachers. Nearly all of those 900 teachers are Tier 2 teachers. TRA pension improvements are desperately needed as a strong way to both attract and retain educators. I thank the authors for bringing the bills forward today and to the committee members for taking time to hear us. Minnesota Public School educators work with passion, commitment, and love, banking on the strength of an ever-building proverbial brick wall. We need those bricks to help us climb towards a respectable retirement pension. Over the last 4 years, we have witnessed the stream of aspiring educator candidates entering the teaching field move from a flood to a trickle. Colleges and universities are reporting record low enrollment in their teacher education programs. We are also seeing a dwindling of the number of qualified and willing licensed teachers coming forward, as well as candidates who may be unlicensed, but willing to try. We are desperate to fill many educator roles, with the toughest roles to fill being those who work and serve with some of our most needy and vulnerable special education students. While my 27 years in education have been full of highs and lows, experiencing teaching through COVID allowed me to experience and observe teachers stepping up in ways I could have never envisioned. And today, now, the number of students who need us, who have reached crisis levels, has been shocking. We are still recovering, repairing, and renewing today those who were broken through the pandemic and daily as we work to survive. Many of those broken include educators who are leaving empty teacher chairs behind. Some of us stayed the course, somehow believing that decades of commitment would realize a respectable retirement. Again, we stepped up because that's what educators do, time and time again. And that's who's here today and the voices you see in the packets provided to you today. Those collective traumas made teachers rethink the value of their career choices, and therefore, paired with other varied troublesome societal and emotional experiences, many teachers have left the field and are not looking back. We need hope. We need hope for our students and hope that we can regain our gumption to go on. But continuing to serve students and families without knowing an equitable pension is being built will force us to choose otherwise. Brick by brick, Minnesota Public School students and educators are counting on your help. Today's bills are a start in the pension rebuilding. We know Rome wasn't built in a day, and we know that rebuilding the pension wall is ongoing. Please help us rebuild our trust in your representation and commitment to educators. Please support us, one brick and one bill at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, President Olson. Up next is Rodney Rowe, Education Minnesota Secretary, and on deck is Peter Eckhoff, President of the Robbinsdale Federation of Teachers. And please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Herr and members of the committee. My name is Rodney Rowe, and I currently serve as the Secretary-Treasurer of Education Minnesota, the labor union of more than 85,000 current and retired educators, aspiring educators, and higher education faculty. I taught elementary school students in Sleepy Eye and in Worthington for 19 years before starting my current assignment 10 years ago. So for nearly 30 years, I have had a personal and a professional interest in teachers' pensions. I would like to thank the members of the commission for bringing your expertise to this issue. Pensions are complicated, expensive, they trigger strong emotions, as all of you know. I am also sympathetic to the position that you're in. No one in this commission made the decision in 1989 to ask teachers to work to the age of 66 to get a full retirement benefit. one of the oldest ages in the country. However, you do have the power to lift up a struggling profession and bring that age closer to the average. Reducing the normal retirement age will make it easier for teachers to access the full pensions benefits that they have earned over long careers. The state's E-12 budget supports public education, but you have a special role in supporting public educators. Even in 1989, it was hard to expect teachers in their middle 60s to get up and down off of the floor with their elementary students. In the 21st century, it's almost as hard to imagine any public school teachers making it that long. Decisions beyond teachers' control have created conditions that are burning us out as never before, including larger class sizes and caseloads, less planning time, more students with extreme needs, fewer supports for those students, and the constant threat of gun violence. Today, I am asking you to support NRA 64 because it is a good start. This change will give teachers more freedom in their retirement planning. It will create a stronger incentive to stay in the classroom by creating a more attainable retirement age and to attract new people into the profession. This change will become a key recruiting tool. When smart, dedicated undergraduates are choosing their careers, they will look to corporate America and they will see a future as a disposable cog in a gig economy with, at best, a risky employer match retirement plan. Or they can look to teaching and they will see a state that values their work and their simple humanity, enough to offer a form of compensation that will only grow more valuable, an accessible, defined benefit pension for a dignified retirement. Again, I want to thank you for the work on pension issues and for your consideration of this vital first step toward healing and reinvigorating the teaching profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Rowe. Up next is Peter Eckhoff, and on deck is Tiffany Dietrich, President of White Bear Lake Area Educators. If you can introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm Peter Eckhoff. I've been a teacher for 29 years, with most of my classroom teaching in the 3rd grade. I currently have the pleasure of serving my colleagues as the president of the Robbinsdale Federation of Teachers. I want to say a huge thank you to the members of the LCPR and Chair Herr for your continued engagement on fair teacher pensions. It's clear by scheduling this meeting that you've heard us, and I want to ask for any help each of you can give us to get this proposal across the finish line this session. This proposal is not everything that teachers want, but it is a significant step in the right direction, and it's the first lowering of normal retirement age for a teacher pension plan in the nation since the 1970s. The Robbinsdale Federation of Teachers represents nearly 1,000 educators that are almost all Tier 2 pension educators, and their lives will be significantly improved by a fair teacher pension. Since 1989, teaching has only gotten harder, and I'm sure you've all seen it. Since we were students, class sizes have gone through the roof. Mental health and behavioral issues have become unmanageable, and teachers are also expected to do more with less. Neither our salaries nor education spending have kept pace with inflation, despite our ever-growing needs and our lists of things to accomplish. You know that we're in it because we love teaching. We love caring for students and helping them reach their goals. But the reality is hitting us that the rule of 90 is gone, and that we're seeing our colleagues hired just before we were, in many cases, retire up to 10 years earlier with no penalties, while we must hold on until a much later time than the average retirement age for teachers in this nation. I know that you, our current legislators, didn't take this workers' benefit away from us, but you could be the ones to help fix it. I've heard many mid-career teachers this year that say that they want to leave for private sector jobs to see if they can find more stable and flexible retirement. And additionally, I know that many of our largest education programs in colleges throughout Minnesota are graduating fewer future teachers than they have in decades. As this arbitrary deadline caught up to us, we lost one of the greatest recruitment and retention tools for this essential industry. And this is why pensions exist, as well as why we need to address these inequities between the benefits based simply on a date of hire. Many of us decided to go into teaching knowing it doesn't necessarily pay well, but being told that a public pension was a worthy reward. It's not just about older teachers or younger teachers. It's about keeping this profession that we love alive. Please hear us when we say that we absolutely need this change, this session. I think NRA 64 is a great first step in addressing the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, President Eckhoff. Next is Tiffany Dietrich, and on deck is Julie Seiler, band teacher from Minnesota Public Schools. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Dietrich, and I am a proud public school educator. When I began my career 27 years ago, I was the baby of our department. Within 5 years, the majority of my colleagues retired after long, illustrious careers. In doing so, they entered a well-deserved chapter in their lives, secure in the promise of financial security, offered in part by a well-appointed public pension, a reward earned after decades of service to their students and their families. I learned much from them in those 5 years and have felt compelled to honor their legacy through my work ever since. Today, I serve as president to the nearly 600 members of White Bear Lake area educators. My colleagues come to school each day, laser focused on the needs of their students. They work tirelessly to meet every student where they are at and provide support that extends far beyond the curriculum at a time when more is required of them than ever before. Most of us have spent our entire career putting ourselves aside in order to do what's best for our students and their learning. We sacrifice time with our own families. We advocate for what our students need here at the Capitol and in our districts. We work through our union to take care of each other in ways that a union contract can. Now, our educators are saying we need lawmakers to take care of us in the way that legislators can. Our educators deserve the ability to retire at a reasonable age after a lifetime of public service with the same promise of financial security that my valued colleagues did then, without penalty, and just as educators in many other states do now. NRA 64 is a step toward fulfilling that promise. I have yet to meet an educator who does this important work for the money or the praise. Yet I know a robust pension offers an incentive to those willing to embrace the challenges of education in the 21st century. Thank you, Chair Herr and members of the LCPR for continuing this conversation. Please honor the essential role of educators in ensuring the future vitality of our state by passing meaningful pension reform this session. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dietrich. Next is Julie Sellier, band teacher of 33 years with Minnesota Public Schools. And on deck is Sarah Lancaster, 2022 Minnesota Teacher of the Year. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Honorable Chair Herr and Pension Committee members. My name is Julie Seiler, and I am honored to make a second appearance testifying for pension reform for Tier 2 educators in this commission. I am so pleased to see the Pension Committee come together and hear a solution that starts the process of repairing the great inequities between educators that began before July 1, 1989, and those that started teaching after that date. Thank you to Senator Cwodzinski and Representative Wolgamott for putting this new bill forward. In my 33 years of being an Education Minnesota member and teacher, I have never seen educators from all across the state come together on a single issue like pension reform. The active passion from the grassroots members runs high on this topic, and people are now fully aware of the situation the Minnesota government created on July 1, 1989, the line in the sand that picked winners and losers. The division had been sown and created an unfair two-tier retirement system, even though all paid the same amount into their retirement. Thank you for taking steps to remedy this old, bad decision from legislatures past. This proposal serves as a great starting point in righting this wrong. This bill is a good first step to help all Tier 2 members. I urge you to continue work to reward career educators, those that would have been able to retire this year if they were Tier 1. Minnesota needs a fair pension plan, along with fair wages and benefits, to weather this extreme teacher shortage. Teaching has only gotten harder. We should make sure that the support for the profession is better, not worse. We shape and mold the next generation of young people who will be the next leaders. Without math teachers in 2025, there will be no engineers in 2035. Thank you for hearing the many educator voices this session and responding in kind. As I stated earlier, I have never seen a single hot button issue bring together so many educators in such a short period of time. We are advocating for positive change for now and for those that will follow in our footsteps. And I hope that each and every one of you will be a partner in this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seiler. And I should have said this earlier before I started testimony, but if you have pronouns that you would like for us to use, please identify your pronouns as well, because I try to always use people's official title to be respectful. You've all earned those titles. And so when and I don't know if it's normal to say teacher Seiler. In my culture, we would do that, but I just want to be respectful that if you have a pronoun that you would like for me to use, please identify that when you introduce yourselves. Thank you so much for your testimony. Up next is Sarah Lancaster, and then we have someone remote, Brian Cole, who is the teacher of Moorhead Middle School. If you can identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, LCPR members. My name is Sarah Lancaster, and I am a first grade teacher at Onamia Elementary, finishing my 10th year in education. I also have the honor of currently serving as the Minnesota State Teacher of the Year, and have spent the last year traveling the state and the country, talking with other teachers and serving as the representative of this great profession. My story is one that resonates strongly with many educators across our state. The story of an educator working during the most difficult years of our profession. All across Minnesota, our educators are working with large class sizes, overwhelming need for mental health services, and dealing with the emotional, social, and behavioral fallout of students like never before. But through all of this, we continue to show up and serve our students, because the occupation of teaching is not designed around us. We are made for it. We are the ones who hold the future in our classrooms, and education is the single most important investment our state can make. And we can invest in the future of our state by supporting the people who are the most significant variable in affecting the education of our students, the teachers. Teachers invest their time, energy, and our whole selves into the classrooms. We are asking Minnesota to invest in their teachers so that our students can succeed. As a teacher who is entering the middle of my career, I have heard of many across our state that have found themselves at the crossroad of choosing whether to leave or stay in this profession. In order to retain teachers, whether they are beginning, in the middle, or celebrating the end of a long and rewarding career, we need a strong pension to reflect all of the hard work that we have done and will continue to put into this profession. The NRA 64 proposal is a good first step to a pension system that can do that, as well as recruit new teachers into the profession. And it is critical, now more than ever, that we continue to bring and work to increase the number of highly qualified teachers. I am grateful for the legislators who know that this bill is what we can do this year and are ready to continue the work in the future to make sure that all educators have a pension that honors their dedication to our students and our profession and can retire with dignity. Let's keep working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lancaster, and congratulations on your Teacher of the Year. I can't imagine how many other amazing teachers you had to beat out for that, so congratulations. Next up, we have a remote testifier, Brian Cole, and then on deck is Jonathan Bone, Director of Public Affairs of the Interfaculty Organization. Oops, hang on. Just a second, Mr. Cole, we don't have you up yet.
He's on.
Is he on? Can we not see him on the screen over there?
He's not going to show up until he starts talking.
Okay. All right, Mr. Cole, if you are ready, please go ahead and identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony. Actually, Mr. Cole, we can't hear you at the moment. One second. Can we grab that thingy right here?
Oh, maybe it's.
Okay.
I think everything is on.
Can we do the sound off for your?
We can try.
And you're connected to the system. I don't see any cords connected to it. Mr. Cole, can you say something so that we can hear you? We're going to work on that a little bit, and hopefully we can get Mr. Cole up. But as we're trying to do that, we're going to go to Jonathan Bone. If you can come up and identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Madam Chair, thank you. Commission members, good to be in front of you again. My message is simple today. The bill is excellent. It will do all the great things these people say, but I just encourage the commission not to forget about the higher education folks in TRA. In the current draft of the bill, Minnesota State does not receive any funding for the employer side. In 2018, when that reform package was passed, Min-State did not receive funding for the increase in the employer contribution, and to date has spent about $16 million to cover that unfunded mandate. So please don't forget about us. And the other thing that I would like to request and work with you on is how this could impact our faculty in IRAP. Ms. Lancheski included in her summary the piece that changes the employer increase for IRAP. We would like to work on perhaps some exemptions for our faculty that are past tenure, past that second election, so that they're not impacted by this and due to the IRS regulations. So
Thank
that's
you,
it.
Director Bone.
Thank you.
Up next is Kim Lewis, who's the Government Relations for Minnesota School Board Association. And on deck is Jay Stoffel, Executive Director of the Teachers Retirement Association. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Kim Lewis, and I'm with the Minnesota School Boards Association. Today, I'm also testifying on behalf of the Minnesota Association of School Administrators, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, the Minnesota Elementary School Principals Association, and the Minnesota Secondary School Principals Association. We appreciate the opportunity to share our thoughts in this informational hearing on House File 3294 and Senate File 3414. Our organizations recognize the challenges and with the current teachers' pension program, and we believe reform of the fund is needed. We think this bill is a step in the right direction in correcting the issue. We acknowledge that Minnesota is an outlier in requiring that employees work until the age of 66 to get full retirement benefits, and this should be addressed. We do support the intent of the bill. The only point we'd like to raise today is where the money would come from, and we urge that the funding of this provision should not come out of the E-12 budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Next is, we're going to actually go back to Mr. Cole to see if we could get him up. Looks like he might.
Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. If you could speak just a little bit louder and closer to your microphone, that would be wonderful. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you for taking my testimony this morning. My name is Brian Cole. I'm a career teacher from Moorhead, Minnesota, and I'm in my 29th year of teaching. We have an education problem in Minnesota that is not being currently addressed. It's an educator pension problem. As you've heard, currently Minnesota ranks 47th in the nation in regards to normal retirement age. In our 5-state area, Wisconsin, Iowa, and the Dakotas, Minnesota ranks a distant 5th when it comes to teacher retirement pension benefits. Public education in Minnesota has always been one of our crown jewels, one of our hallmarks. Test scores, graduation rates, students pursuing trade and 4-year degrees, participation in the arts, athletics, and activities, all above the national average. In some of those categories, we're at the top of the country. So during our career as educators, we light the passion. We fuel the passion so that our children, to use the words of Garrison Keillor, can be above average. That's during our career. But at the end of our career, teachers in Minnesota face a below average pension, and not just below average, third lowest in the country. That statistic deflates the soul, and it's hard to serve when our spirits are empty. As a teacher, as an orchestra teacher, I view my position as a family heirloom. I inherited it 29 years ago. I took ownership of it, I preserved it, and now I'm trying to make improvements in it before I transfer this position on to the next generation. As state government officials, I respectfully ask that each one of you look at the educator pension problem in Minnesota as a family heirloom. You've inherited it, no fault to your own, but now it's time to make improvements in it before you pass it on to the next generation. The most recent bill is the first step, not the final step, but the first step for an improved educator pension plan, an improved pension plan that will help in the retention and recruitment of educators across Minnesota. Thank you for your time and for your help in creating a dignified retirement for educators in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. And our last two testifiers, Jay Stoffel, and then the last on deck is Philip Tensick, Executive Director, CIO of St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund Association. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Jay Stoffel. I'm the Executive Director of the Teachers Retirement Association. And with me is Holly Dayton. She's our legislative liaison person at TRA. And thank you to the authors of the bill for putting this the bill out there for us to consider. What I'd like to start off with is say that there's been some misunderstanding in the last few days regarding where TRA stands on pension reform. I'd like to make clear the position of the TRA board. The TRA board believes that pension reform is needed in 2023. We have a normal retirement age of 66 for teachers hired after June 30, 1989, and that is too high. It's an outlier compared to other states. This makes Minnesota less competitive in recruiting and retaining good teachers. We have a flawed pension system when we have a full retirement benefit that's unachievable for most members. When evaluating pension reform proposals, TRA must consider our fiduciary duties and guiding principles. As benefit reforms are proposed, ensuring the fund's stability must be our top priority. Over the last several months, TRA has been a proponent of at least 3 ideas related to lowering the normal retirement age, including having full benefits when a teacher has attained age 60 with 30 years of service. We've talked about a normal retirement age of 65 and a normal retirement age of 64, and there have been other ideas. We have met continuously with TRA stakeholders, active teachers, retirees, employer groups, and with legislators. Our message has been consistent. We need significant structural pension reform in the state of Minnesota that requires significant long-term funding. As fiduciaries, TRA must insist that benefit improvements are fully funded. Without adequate funding, we would return to discussions as we had not so long ago about sustainability. As for the bill before us, Senate File 3314, House File 3294, I can tell you that TRA supports the bill, with one caveat. First, I want to tell you the reasons why we support the bill. It lowers normal retirement age from 66 to 64, making full retirement more attainable for teachers and making Minnesota more competitive. Number two, there's a shared commitment by increasing the employer contribution by 1% and the employee contribution by half a percent. Number three, it appears the intent is to fully fund the higher employer contribution requirement by increasing the pension adjustment in the school aid formula in order to fully fund the employer contribution rate increase. And I use the words "it appears" because the appropriation amounts are blank in the bill. Number four, the new funding in this bill from the employee, from the employer, along with the funding of the $145 million in the other pension bill, the pension budget bill, fully covers the cost of this benefit improvement and does not weaken the actuarial condition of the retirement fund. The one concern we have is that this bill will set a precedent by treating Tier 1 members different than Tier 2 members. Tier 1 members were hired before July 1st, 1989. All teachers will pay an additional 0.5%, but only Tier 2 members will receive a benefit increase, the normal retirement age of 64. Normal retirement age in Tier 1 will remain at 65. In all prior...
Members, please I've refrained from making noises of those who are visiting here. We need to make sure that everybody gets to testify and that we're respectful for everyone and their perspective here. Thank you. Mr. Stoffel, please go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been asked to start that paragraph again. There is a concern for the policymakers to consider. The one concern we have is that this bill will set a precedent by treating Tier 1 members differently than Tier 2 members. All teachers will pay an additional 0.5%, but only Tier 2 members will receive a benefit increase, the normal retirement age of 64. The normal retirement age in Tier 1 will remain at 65. In every prior year before up until now, Tier 1 and Tier 2 members were treated equally for any benefit improvement, any benefit reduction, any change in contribution rates. They've all been treated equally the same. However, with that concern noted, TRA will support the benefit improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Stoffel. Ms. Dayton, are you also testifying or just up there supporting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No further comments. Thank you.
Okay. Then we do have one more testifier, Senator Nelson, or can we finish that testifier, or do you?
Yeah, no, Madam Chair, my question was for these testifiers, but I can certainly wait till all the testifiers.
Thank you. We just
are
have one more testifier left, and then we can begin member questions. Our last person is Philip Tunsick. If you are ready, please come up to the testifiers table and identify yourself.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Phil Tunsick, Executive Director and CIO of the St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund Association. I'd like to thank everyone for hearing this bill. The St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund does support the goals of this bill to lower the normal retirement age and fund that benefit improvement. However, we would like to note that there is a St. Paul-sized hole in this bill since it only applies to TRA. That hole could quite easily be filled by having the 1% employer contribution increase applied to St. Paul schools, and for that it would buy a 1-year decrease in the normal retirement age for St. Paul teachers down to 65. We would keep the 62 and 30 that's in the pension omnibus bill, and so this would match together with those two to provide an improved retirement age for career teachers and then teachers that don't have the long-serving career as well. Additionally, an NRA of 65 would only increase the cost of the bill by $3 million from $56 million to $59 million. So I don't believe that's a material difference in terms of the overall cost of the bill. It would also fully fund the benefit increase, so our sufficiency would be maintained. Finally, the 1% would match the employer or the employee contribution for 62 and 30, so it does split the benefit improvement costs 50-50 between employees and employer across the session as a whole. At age 65, this would also match the Tier 1 normal retirement age, so as Mr. Stoffel from TRA mentioned, would provide equity across generations within schools. I also would like to point out that there's one area we've not discussed, a knock-on effect of an NRA of 64 when other plans have a 66 retirement age. For combined service retirements, a member has to make application with the other systems within 1 year of the retirement from the primary system. So an NRA difference of 2 years would mean that it would be required for someone to take an early reduction with one of the plans. And so a 1 year difference between plans would allow people to bridge that gap without impacting their combined service annuity. And that's a large issue for St. Paul schools. We found 59% of our deferred members have combined service credits. And so that's an area we'd like to be addressed through that NRA reduction of 65 for St. Paul teachers. Thank you for my time this morning, especially knowing that I'm the last testifier. I tried to be brief.
Thank you, Mr. Tensick. And we will move to member questions at this time. And I know that Senator Rasmussen had raised his hand earlier, and then we will go to Senator Nelson after that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if I have a question for Mr. Schulte.
Mr. Schulte, if you could come back up to the testifiers table.
Madam Chair.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Schulte. A couple of questions for you. The first one is that this proposal moves out the amortization date by 5 years, and I think you mentioned in your testimony that this would be then the only pension plan, state plan that would be extended out to 2053. And I was wondering if you could explain, is that best practice or does that deviate from best practice when we think about pension management?
Mr. Schulte.
Madam Chair, Senator Rasmussen, extending the amortization period out 30 years is not necessarily a best practice nowadays. Generally, we look to shorter amortization periods, realizing that's a foundational piece of the bill to keep the sustainability of the contributions. But it would be preferable if there were more money upfront and not an extended amortization period from a general actuarial perspective. It just pushes paying off the bill or the benefit improvements a long time.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And and I appreciate it, Mr. Schulte. As a follow-up, it's my understanding that if we were to keep the amortization date at 2048, which is what it is currently for TRA and for all the other plans that this commission deals with, that would move the contribution deficiency for this proposal to negative 2.31%. And I was wondering if you could comment, could you put that into context for what that means to members of the public? And is that a sign of a healthy pension plan, or is that a red flag that there are some issues?
Mr. Schulte.
Madam Chair, Senator Rasmussen, so the contribution sufficiency and deficiency that I spoke about earlier, what that is, it's a comparison to an actuarially determined rate versus the current statutory rate and what the difference is there. Ideally, those are zero, so that the rates are sufficient. Right now, there's a slight deficiency in the proposed bill of about 1% of payroll, and that you're correct that would go up by about another 1.2% of payroll with if we shorten the amortization or kept the current amortization period at 2048. So it would increase that ongoing deficiency unless there's additional funds to help pay for it.
Senator Rasmussen, any follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess those would just be a couple of the concerns, and I think there's bipartisan support and interest in trying to do something for teacher pensions. I just want to make sure that any proposal that we pass is paid for, and we're not just continuing to create unfunded liabilities for TRA going forward in the future, because frankly, that's what has driven these unfair outcomes that we're trying to deal with today. And so the answer it isn't to kick the can down the road. I think if we're going to do teacher pension benefit improvements this year, we just need to make sure that we're paying for it and we're leaving TRA in a financially stable position that doesn't threaten the benefits that we've promised to our teachers. I have some more questions, Madam Chair, but I don't know if you want to go to other members before I get into
Senator
that.
Rasmussen, I will go to the other members, and then we'll come back to you if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions are somewhat kind of along the same lines, and I'm not sure who to pose them to, so I'll pose the question and we'll find out who might be able to answer that. One of the first things we spoke of when I came to pensions this year was that extensive red box for the St. Paul teachers TRA. and how I'd asked, well, how did we get in that position? And I will never forget the answer. The answer was, well, we thought we were doing something good to help the St. Paul teachers by extending or increasing their pensions without actuarially paying for it, and it was a way for us to do so. Well, but now, of course, we just know that that's just false. It's impossible to extend enhanced pensions without actuarially paying for it. Without, somewhere along the line, it's going to be a problem, and it's going to be a bigger problem compounded by numbers of years. So my question is, with the proposal that we have before us today, and the fact that there is no school aid pension dollars, would this not be creating another red box for our teachers?
And Senator Nelson, that is a good question. And I will first kind of maybe just say for the entire body here and those who are present today to understand that what we would be asking for, and I think that maybe Representative Wolgamott and Senator Cwodzinski can actually talk about, we don't have an actual fiscal note, but we have an approximate of how much this will cost. Right now, it is about 60, depending on whose estimate you're looking at, it's about $61 million per year. That's not by biennium, that's per year. At the current time, we do not have it within the pension budget in order to fund this. If you all recall, we did provide $145 million for TRA, and as the actuary presented, that could be applied to this for at least one biennium, but then we would still have issues with ongoing funding, which we all know that it is not responsible to make structural changes without having ongoing funding, and that there are potential options at looking at the education finance budget or the tax budget in order to figure out where we might be able to find ongoing funding, because I think we can all agree in here, I think even those who are present, is that we don't want to make changes that could hurt the benefits for future teachers as well, and that means we have to fund it going forward. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Senator Nelson, if there's anybody else here who might be able to add to that from the plans themselves, or if you all feel like what I've said is sufficient. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that does add some further details to the concern about the sustainability, quite frankly. And so while there's no doubt that our teachers deserve and need that update to our pension normal age of retirement, particularly in light of the last few years, I would say that remains a concern, to fund something without knowing that you have the sustainability to go forward. So that would be acting on good intentions, but without having the actual wherewithal to make good on those promises. So I'm somewhat concerned about that. And I would just mention one other question, and this would be, I think, for our TRA members, Mr. Schulte, I believe, and Ms. Holly. Are they available?
Mr. Stoffel, Mr. Schulte, we'll let you go. Mr. Stoffel and Ms. Dayton. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my question is, assuming we find those additional funds needed to make what is being proposed here today a real solution and not just kicking the can down the road and actually making things worse, I want to know an interesting comment. Actually the paragraph that you reread, I almost need you to elaborate on that again. The idea that teachers, once again, are going to be treated differently between the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 teachers. And I wanted you to elaborate on how many Tier 1 teachers do we currently have? How many Tier 2 teachers are there? And what do you see as the difference between how those Tier 1 teachers will be treated under this proposal as opposed to the Tier 2 teachers?
Mr. Stoffel.
Madam Chair, Senator Nelson, today we have roughly 7,500 Tier 1 members. And I have that broken down by age group if you're interested. Most of them are, well, there's almost 600 of them that are over the age of 65. There are 1,500 of them between the ages of 60 and 65. There are 1,300 of them between the ages of 55 and 60. And under 55, there's 8 people. Those are so that's a total of 3,500 roughly who are active contributing teachers. So of the 7,500, 3,500 are active contributing. Then we have another 4,000 that are in deferred status. Teachers or people who have worked as a teacher, have left the profession, they haven't started collecting their pension yet, so we call those people deferred. There are 4,000 of those. But in total, roughly 7,500 Tier 1 educators in the plan. This bill would treat those people separately. Everyone will see a 0.5% increase in contribution rates, whether you're Tier 1 or Tier 2. All members will pay an additional 0.5%. And the Tier 1 members, these 3,500 active contributing teachers will pay that higher contribution rate, but their normal retirement age will not be lowered. They are at 65 already. So they have a lower normal retirement age than the Tier 2 folks, but this bill will take the Tier 2 normal retirement age to 64, but only for Tier 2 people. Of the 80,000 members that we have, I said about 7,500, about 3,500 are Tier 1. The remainder would be Tier 2. So the vast majority of our active members are Tier 2. About 95% are Tier 2.
Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just do the math for me, because you mentioned the 3,500 Tier 1 that are active and the 7,500 that are in deferral status. So that's 11,000 right there. So is
Madam Chair,
that?
Senator Nelson, 4,000 that are 4,000 that are deferred for a total of 7,500.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's my question.
Okay.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Senator Nelson? Is that?
No, just one comment, and I think you mentioned this is coming. What is the cost to our school districts to increase the employer share by 1%? And I also think when we get that information, because our school districts are not just going to be paying for that, they're going to be paying for all the other mandates, paid family medical leave, for example, unemployment insurance for those working. Unemployment insurance for those who are 9-month employees. I think it's important, certainly I would like to see a sheet that itemizes out all of those additional costs to our school districts, including the 1% that we're speaking of today. So I have a few other comments, but I'll hold off on those so others have a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. We do have still Representative Nelson and Representative O'Driscoll. But before I go to Representative Nelson, I do just want to ask Representative Wolgamott or Senator Cwodzinski. I know that we do not have a fiscal note for this yet, and I think you had a couple of amendments as well. But if you have any thoughts around the actual cost of it that you would like to share with the body, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. You were correct that TRA has had an actuary who has costed this out, and it would be $61 million per fiscal year. We have requested an expedited fiscal note, so we hope to have those numbers in even further detail. Again, that's why we're doing an informational hearing here, but we will certainly, as soon as that fiscal note comes in, I'll make sure that you and members of the commission are able to get it as soon as possible.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. And, Senator Nelson.
I'm sorry, just before we leave that, our fiscal notes are the cost to the state. I'd like to know the impact note and the cost to the school districts.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. And Representative Wolgamott and Senator Cwodzinski, if there's a way for us to get that to the commission, that'd be wonderful. And I think Senator Nelson brings up a good point in that we are hearing quite a bit from educators who are not part of the teachers' plans and the impact of changes to those retirement versus the benefits that they have as well. So it could be a good idea for us to sort of put together just a list of the ways in which we're trying to make the field of educating easier for all of those who are part of the education system. Representative Wolgamott, it looks like you might have something to say, but not, okay, just nodding with it. Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. And we'll go to Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Senator Rasmussen answered one of my first questions, what is sufficiency and what does deficiency mean? Because currently, my understanding is the TRA, and Mr. Stoffel can probably answer it, is like at 76% funded or maybe a little bit higher. And we're not putting enough money, even with this addition here to bring it up to full funding. We're just pushing the date out. I guess the first question I have is to Mr. Stoffel is what would happen to current Tier 2 teachers that have possibly already retired and have taken that deduct, maybe they retired early. What would happen to their pensions? Are they going to get a bump up to the new levels? Is they're going to be recalculated, or are they going to be stuck with the pensions they have?
Mr. Stoffel.
Madam Chair, Representative Nelson, under this bill, there would be no change to those folks who have already retired under either Tier 1 or Tier 2. They're in payment status, they're receiving a benefit. This bill does not go back and do anything retroactive to those folks.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you for that. That's the question. The other thing that when the Senator Cwodzinski talked about this at the beginning about if it's easier to push people off into early retirement, save money for the school districts, it reminds me of a former member of this commission, Phyllis Kahn, longtime member of the Pension Commission. She used to, when we were in deficits, push plans for early retirement for state employees, for teachers and that, because for the idea that it shifts the cost off of the payroll of the school districts, the state, whatever. But as she got later on, in her tenure at the legislature, she kind of switched her idea on that, because instead of, it does shift the costs to lower employees at the school districts, at the state, but it shifts that cost to our pension funds. And if we do those things that don't fund that, that puts our pension funds in a big hurting place and makes them worse. And then we're back at where we are today, talking about how we can improve benefits, or as we've had to do it a couple times when I've been here, and Representative O'Driscoll's been here on the Pension Commission, when we've had deficit the states and not have any money put in the funds, and the funds are suffering. We've had to make these changes like they did in '89 to make sure that we maintain the funds and make the pension funds so that we can do the payouts, the promises we've made. So I just wanted to point that out to Senator Cwodzinski, because I mean, we mentioned that a lot of times, that looks like an easy way. We're just shifting that cost because we're going to have cheaper employees, but we're shifting that cost to the pension funds, and we aren't funding them in the proper way to do that.
Thank you, Representative Nelson. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things for members and those gathered here today. In the Minnesota House, about a week ago, we unanimously passed both the policy and the finance bill. And the purpose of that finance bill was to allocate money to all of Minnesota's different public pension plans, with the idea of buying down current liabilities so that we could move the rate of return from 7.5% down to 7%, and basically to hold people harmless and to inflict no injury on people as we continue to heed the best advice that we have available from our investment advisors on the track of what they believe long-term rates of return might be. Keeping that in mind and looking at the proposal today, I would caution the commission, if they're going to want to make a recommendation, that recommendation take into account the following kinds of items. And I'm not sure who can answer my first question, but I'm going to ask it. And it has to do with the actuarial evaluation that we should be receiving pretty soon about the life expectancy of persons that would be covered by the TRA benefits. On a rolling 5-year basis, the legislature gets that demographic information, which is also factored into determining sufficiencies and ability to be able to pay out benefits. Is there anyone who knows when that next report is due up? I'm seeing Mr. Stoffel shake his head rather vigorously that he may have the answer to that very important question.
I have the answer, Madam Chair.
Mr. Stoffel, go ahead.
And Representative O'Driscoll, yes, we are in the middle of what we call an experience study. That kind of a report is done every 4 years. It compares our actual experience over the last 4 years to the assumptions that we're using. And the result of an experience study is a recommendation or a set of recommendations on not only mortality, Representative O'Driscoll was asking about our mortality assumption, but there's some significant economic assumptions, the rate of return, inflation, other things like salary increases. There's just a number of assumptions that we're evaluating every 4 years. That report is being done right now, and we expect to receive the report in June.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Stoffel, I think that that's an important pillar in our decision and evaluating process of what we do, not only with this type of a pension with TRA, but with our other plans as we do that on a rotating basis. Mr. Stoffel, you had commented earlier that there are a number of individuals who are involved in the deferred status that could be Tier 1 and possibly Tier 2 individuals. My question to you is this: if this bill in the form that it's before the commission right now passes, current and active members would be paying additional contributions, but those deferred individuals would not be paying additional contributions, but would immediately be eligible for benefits if they met the definition of 64 or 30 years of service, and they chose to go from deferred status to a retired status. Am I correct?
Mr. Stoffel.
Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, I'll answer, and I think I may need some assistance, but according to current law, a member who defers has benefits that they're entitled to benefits at the time that they defer. So when a benefit improvement comes along, they need to go back to work for at least a half a year to be eligible for the new improved benefits. So if someone defers and a benefit comes along and they don't go back to work, they get the old set of benefits at which that they retired under. So if a person comes back for half a year, then they're entitled to the new improved set of benefits.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Stoffel, just to put that in an example format, an individual who maybe has started at age 25 and, or let's do age 30, it's just a little cleaner that way because then we don't get the rule of 90 involved in that conversation. So someone starts at age 30, they work for 30 years, they're not eligible really for the rule of 90 at that point, or they're kind of close. And so if they were to go on a deferred status, you're telling the folks assembled here today in the commission that that individual would have to go back to work even though they may not be age 64 at this point and eligible for the rule of 90. They would still have to go back to work in order to receive the benefit because they would come out of the Tier 1 group because they didn't have enough years of service and age?
No, what I'm saying is this person in this example worked for a time and then left teaching, went into deferred status. They can wait until whichever age they want to, they can defer for as long as they want and then decide to receive their benefit. The benefit they receive if they don't go back to work is the benefit that's calculated using the laws at the time that they deferred.
Representative O'Driscoll.
So, Mr. Stoffel, they would still be eligible for their Tier 1 benefit, as some refer to it, or the rule of 90, if they've been deferred, because that was the rules of which they had left employment under.
Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, yes, if they were under Tier 1 when they left, they retained that eligibility even after deferring.
And Madam Chair, a couple of other just brief comments here. One of the things that we also need to be thinking about is both ends of the spectrum as folks are leaving the profession and drawing pension and those who are coming in. The numbers are very abysmal, as have been established here today, of the number of individuals who are willing to go into teaching. I don't believe in any of our higher education bills or any of the other bills that we have that relate to education in these record surplus times that we are seeing, that we have any incentives for tuition, for benefits, or incentives for individuals to go into teaching. That is just as important as taking care of folks who are leaving the profession, because we're creating a gap of more people leaving and fewer people coming in, which is the exact same thing that we are having and experiencing in law enforcement right now. And again, I realize that today's focus is on TRA, but many of the things when I was listening to testifiers today, if I took out the words teacher and put in the word law enforcement or firefighters, is 100% accurate and 100% true for those individuals. However, the law enforcement, police, and fire folks are at a greater disadvantage. When they retire, they do not get COLA increases for a period of 3 years. They have also negotiated here about 6 or 7 years ago a 10% increase in retirement age to be eligible for full benefit. So they would have to work 10% longer in order to be able to, or actually they're from 50 to 55, that's the calendar age. Service and career might even be longer than that when you look at the amount of time that an individual has been in that. Thank goodness in the tax bill this year, we do have some relief for Social Security and some relief for these pensions, because those folks get relief in pensions right now, where folks may be able to get some relief in Social Security under current law, but there is nothing that's afforded to police and fire. So if we're gonna be doing something for one group, I think we have to look at the other group who is absolutely parallel with where we're looking at the TRA folks. It's not just the TRA group. Law enforcement hasn't been as vocal at the table, but I think it's very important to bring their plight to the table here as well, since we're talking globally about what's good for the state of Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Driscoll. Representative Wolgamott.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would just like to make note that in our higher education finance budget that we passed off the House floor a couple of weeks ago, there's a provision in there that I was actually the chief author of for workforce development scholarships. And that does include people entering into the education profession as well as entering into the law enforcement profession. So we do have some tools in our higher education budget to attract more folks into the education workforce.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I am really grateful for this informational hearing. And while I wasn't here at the very beginning, I was listening to the hearing, and particularly to Senator Cwodzinski's comments when he was presenting the bill, talking about professions that have been deeply impacted by both the unrest and the pandemic that we've experienced over the last 3 years. He was talking about law enforcement, he was talking about educators, and talking about professional nurses. And that really held with me. Yesterday in the State Gov Committee, we heard the pension proposals, including duty disability. And we had another difficult hearing as we listened to people talk about what the decisions that we're making here mean for them and their lives as we are wrestling with a solution that we need to solve. And Chair Herr, you have been central in that discussion. I feel like this discussion that we're having here is aligned with that discussion, in that there has been an inequity that we have known about for years and years that is exacerbated now by time, by inaction, by previous legislatures, not this one, and by the fact that educators in the classroom have borne a significant amount of burden as families and Minnesotans have been through a very, very trying time that history will reflect back on and say, holy buckets, Americans and people across the globe went through a lot. And our job now is to respond to that response, to what we're hearing from people. Our job as policymakers in this moment, when we think about our place in history, is to respond to that. And that's why I'm grateful for this proposal. And while it is not a complete solution to what we're hearing from the educators who have, are now beginning to experience the inequity that was created decades ago, I don't think we can close our eyes to it. This is an issue I started hearing about before we took the oath in this term. And there are a lot of teachers, a lot of educators across the state who have expressed a lot of concern about what it means for them if we're not able to rectify this. So I am grateful that we're doing this. I know it's an informational hearing at this point, but I also know that there's life and possibility for this proposal as we're hearing it today. And I want to urge Senator Cwodzinski and Rep. Wolgamott and the legislature to take this seriously and find a path for a solution so that educators who are so eloquently and forcefully sharing with us their concerns understand that we not only hear them, but we understand what they've been through and we're willing to respond so that we have a strong teaching workforce in our schools, because that is our obligation. So I just wanted to make sure before we're done here that I'm clear about that, and to thank Senator Cwodzinski for reminding us of what we've been through, our moment in response, and our place in the history that will be written one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. I will loop back to Senator Rasmussen and then Senator Nelson for the question. Actually, I'm going to go to Representative Berg first, since she hasn't made comments, and then Representative Nadeau. So Representative Berg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the beginning of this, Senator Cwodzinski, talked about this being pieces of a puzzle. And then I listened to the teachers that spoke, and it was in line with what I heard at the doors this season, I will say. And one of the questions that I have, or maybe it's just a comment to our teachers, is looking at this holistically as a puzzle. And as Representative Wolgamott mentioned, we have different pieces in different committees and different bills that we hope are going to contribute to this. I chief authored a bill, HF 8, which is one of the governor's top 10 bills, and it addresses getting more school counselors and school psychologists and school social workers into the schools, not only to address the mental health of our students, but to take the burden off of our teachers who are experiencing the outcome of our students' mental health through their behavior and struggles that the students are going through, both because of the pandemic and because they've always had trauma that they've brought to the classroom that we don't know about. So my hope is that as we put the pieces of this puzzle together, you'll find some relief in the classroom that will maybe make all that you're having to shoulder just a little bit easier. And much like Senator Murphy said, we didn't ask for this issue as current legislators, but we did sign up for the hard conversation and the hard decisions and to be held accountable. So I want to echo, we hear you, we see you. It's not enough. I was talking to my mom this morning. Both my parents are college professors, long retired. And I said, it's unconscionable that we're asking our teachers to teach longer, to not have economic security going into their retirement years like my parents have. And so I just wanted to share that with you, that we are trying in a bunch of different areas to try to lift some of the burden, knowing it's not enough, but being willing to face you and say that. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the authors for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Representative Berg. Representative Nadeau. And before you start, Representative, I do want to just let everyone know that we do have a hard stop in about 20 minutes. We have to stop because then that's the last of our broadcasting, and we do have floor session at 11. So just for everyone to be aware of that, not that I want to thwart the conversation, but Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate what's been said here today. And the thing that surprised me, and thank you guys for bringing this. You know, I think you waited too long. I think, this should have been a priority, 2 months ago. We knew that this was an issue, and I'm glad that it's finally coming up, and I hope that we can find, some money. And that's the issue. I do have some concerns, and Madam Chair, you know that I've been supportive of this, and, in committee on the House floor, I've tried to find money to put to the teacher pensions, and it's been voted down consistently. And that being said, what I've learned on this commission is it's incredibly thoughtful. It's deliberative. It works hard to find that balance. It's not about the politics. It's not about, all the other bills that are doing all the other things to help. It's focused on history, and it's focused on looking forward. And I'm concerned a little bit with changing the amortization timeline. And if I understand what was said is it's not a great best management practice. I mean, are we truly funding it? And going to Senator Rasmussen's question, are we pushing a liability down the road? I want to do everything we can for teachers, but I want to do everything we can in a real way. And if the experience study needs to come out, are we making the right decisions, trying to put a Band-Aid on something, and not making those good long-term decisions that I think this commission has done in the past? That's my concern. I'm incredibly supportive of doing what we can, in the meantime, and I have been, no problem. But I just hope that we're not buying some simple thing at this point and not looking at the long-term impacts of how it's going to affect our teachers long-term. If you and I talked about this at length with the duty disability bill, I trust in that situation that we're going to keep working on that. This one is even less than that one. This one's hard. We haven't talked about it. It's just coming up now. It's the end of session, and I'm just worried that it's not going to be taken seriously. That's my concern, Madam Chair. I support the concept. I thank you guys for bringing it. I'll do everything I can to help you find money to put in there. I will. But I'm very concerned. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Doe. Representative Wolgamott.
Madam Chair, I'd like to respond to Representative Nadeau saying that this is something that we should have done 2 months ago. Representative Nadeau, I'll have to go back and check the minutes because maybe you weren't there that morning, but I actually did present a bill that would lower the national retirement age for teachers about 2 months ago. House File 2222 was presented. Myself and Senator Frentz brought that forward in March. That actually would have reduced the national retirement age from 66 to 62. So we have been working on this all session long, and we are going to continue to bring forward ideas so that we can make some much-needed pension reforms for the benefit of our teachers.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. And Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really do appreciate that we had this hearing and are having a full discussion on this important topic today, and for all the teachers who came down here to be a part of the conversation. One thing I just want to point out, and maybe it will lead to a question, is our pension budget finance bill that has successfully passed off the House floor, and I hope will pass up the Senate floor soon, funded 100% of Governor Walz's pension asks that he had for us. We funded 100% of the governor's recommended budget. And actually, if we look at TRA, this commission and the good bipartisan work we did, we gave 6 times more money to TRA than what the governor recommended in his budget. And so I guess the question that I have, and I think frankly a lot of teachers, a lot of people do, and for a governor who styles themselves as the teacher governor, why wasn't this a part of his budget proposal? If this was a priority for Education Minnesota early on in session, when they were talking about education funding priorities, why wasn't there money set aside to fund a proposal like this? And I know we have, Mr. Carr here today from MMB. We have a lot of folks from Education Minnesota. And it's just a question that I've had for the last couple months, and I think a lot of folks do. Because this commission, I know, has tried our best to fund these priorities and has gone above and beyond what the teacher governor has recommended.
I don't know if there's anybody here today who could answer Senator Rasmussen's question. And if there's not, maybe that's a hypothetical that is put out there to see if we can get an answer. Did I see somebody raise their hand? Oh, please, Mr. Carr, please come up to the testifier's table and identify yourself.
Madam Chair, for the record, my name is Thomas Carr, and I'm an Executive Budget Officer at Minnesota Management and Budget. Thank you, Senator Rasmussen, for the question. You are correct that the governor's budget included the one-time non-compounded 2.5% COLA, and that is included in the LCPR's current pension omnibus bill. I'm not able to speak necessarily to what the governor's thoughts were in terms of what else to include in pensions, et cetera, but I would just say that there are significant increases in his budget in the education space specifically, as opposed to the pension side. But you are correct that the only part of the governor's budget for pensions, TRA or otherwise, was the one-time non-compounded COLA.
Senator Rasmussen, any follow-up? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carr. Senator Nelson.
No, my questions have been answered, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. And if there's no further question, I would just like to make a couple of quick comments before we let our testifiers sort of wrap up. Mr. Stoffel, I see you raising your hand. Did you have?
Madam Chair, just a quick note. We've testified, and hope you understand the bill, the benefit improvement is paid for. You've heard that a number of times. We're going to try to get the fiscal note done, I think, by tomorrow. Our understanding is that when we do the fiscal note for House File 3294, that does not include the $145 million that's in House File 3100. So it may look, if that's true, that may look on the fiscal note like it's not fully funded. Unless, I'd like to work with staff, the authors, the staff, the Pension Commission, to make sure that there's a way, if the fiscal note comes out that looks like it's not fully funded, it is fully funded. And we may be wrong, but the fiscal note is just of a bill. We have another $145 million in another bill that needs to come in to make the piece whole. So just want to alert you, if you see something that looks like it's not fully funded, not to worry. This is fully funded.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, just the one question, though, but when you were in my office yesterday, TRA was not supporting this. And it's pretty important to know what happened between yesterday and today, because I don't know that we have found any more funding anywhere. So I think that, what's the difference?
Mr. Stoffel.
Madam Chair, Senator Nelson, very good question. Thank you for asking. And for a time, early last week and in the recent several days, we did not have complete actuarial information. When we became aware of exactly what is contained in this bill, it was introduced on Friday in the Senate and the House on Monday, we got our actuaries involved once we knew all of the details. One factor that makes a difference is that Tier 1 folks are not included in this benefit improvement. That reduces the cost of the bill. We were not aware of that until the bill was introduced. So as soon as we knew the details, the actuaries ran some new numbers. We just got them yesterday, and it shows that this benefit improvement is paid for with the changes that have been made recently, not including Tier 1 in the benefit improvement, and bringing in $145 million into the equation too. So there were some new factors that were considered, and our actuary and the Pension Commission actuaries come up with there's a slight difference, but the point is both actuaries agree the benefits are paid for with all of those factors being in the final product.
Ms. Dayton, if you could be quick.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Senator Nelson, Holly Dayton, Legislative Liaison for Teachers Retirement Association. The best practice when speaking about this legislation is to consider it by itself. And it's not appropriate, especially when filling out a fiscal note, to make assumptions about other funds that may or may not come into the plan, because the reality is we don't know. We can't count on it. We could put all kinds of assumptions in a fiscal note and say, oh, sure, the market's going to be terrific in the next 10 years, and so that's going to artificially bump up the fund balance. And so we have needed to, quite frankly, very quickly work with what we were informed of and consider the information as we had it, and this bill in isolation. And so Director Stoffel is correct. Our actuarial analysis, which really dug into it yesterday, we got those results back, indicate that the deficiency in the fund will not grow. The contribution deficiency, will not grow as a result of this bill if the $145 million from, is it House File 3100? Right. Is deposited into the fund as, and I'm not even going to say anticipated, but if that occurs. And so I just want to clarify that this bill alone, with the numbers that we've been indicated or had discussions about, would be funded, the 1% employer contribution rate increase and the 0.5% employee contribution increase. That alone is not sufficient to cover the cost of the increased benefit. Working in concert with that $145 million, then it does close that gap. So I just want to be perfectly clear what we're talking about.
I know we have a lot more questions, but I want to make sure that, I told Representative Nelson he had the last word, because I want to make sure our two authors have final say in the bill as well. So my apologies, Senator Nelson and Senator Rasmussen. We can always have conversations with our authors after this, because I think everybody cares about this issue. So I want to make sure people know we'll continue to work on this. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question I had, and it kind of goes directly to this, we have an amendment here that adds Minnesota State Academies, the Perkins Center for the Arts, and the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities to this. If this amendment goes on, does that throw that actuarial out of whack? Is this would this be covered by the funding that's in the bill and that, as you've just talked about?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to.
Ms. Dayton.
That's okay. Representative Nelson, no, it would not change that. So when you're talking about payroll contributions or percentages, it's all based upon covered payroll that comes into the system. And our covered payroll, TRA's covered payroll for this next year, fiscal year 2024, will be $6.1 billion. And that includes the entities that I believe are referenced in that amendment. My understanding is it was an oversight to not explicitly name those entities. They're just a little bit different from some of our others. They're not a traditional school district, so to speak. So that would not change the cost.
Thank you,
Madam
Ms.
Chair,
Daly.
I think this answers the question that Mr. Bone brought up, and that's why I asked.
Thank you, Representative Nelson. And I will just make a couple of quick comments that I want to first thank Representative Wolgamott and Senator Cwodzinski for bringing this bill forward. This is an issue that we all have been grappling with, and we're hoping that with because we did not have ongoing money, it was very difficult for us to make structural changes to these plans, and that we as a commission agreed, and our plan, those who administer our plans said to us that none of us agreed that we all agreed that we would not make structural changes if we could not fund that. And so I want everyone to know that it is not because of lack of will on our part. We absolutely want to give teachers what it is that they deserve, but the inability to actually have ongoing funding would hurt our plans for future teachers and their ability to have stable plans for themselves. So I just want to first say that. Two, I want to just correct Representative O'Driscoll's point that we gave the amounts of money that we did to each of the plan because of the assumed rate of return. The truth is that is an assumption, and when we allocated those funds, it was not specifically to offset that. It's for whatever the plans were doing to buy down liability, regardless of whether the assumed rate of return was changed or not. And so I want to make sure that it's on the record that it wasn't tied, it wasn't given specifically tied to that. And then I want to just say one last thing in that this pensions is very complex, and I think that everybody being here, I know that everyone understands the complexities of that. We're taking into consideration not just, when we look at just straight salary, as a company looks at who do we lay off or who do we, let go so that we can balance just the, our expenses and our income coming in. But with pensions, when we think about who it is that is retiring, we're still looking at predicting the future to ensure that people have the benefits that are there for them. And so it's not just a one-to-one, we have certain teachers leave and then we have younger teachers come in, that we still have to look at what is the actuarial cost of that going into the future. And so there's complications to this, and also in the idea of that when people do decide the 4,000, they do decide to come back and work for 6 months, how does that impact then the cost of future benefits, and how does that factor into this? When we think about when we lower the retirement age to 64 and now we have a large group of people retiring, how does that impact then the actual cost? We don't actually know those things exactly, and so know that we are trying to balance all of the things that we're trying to use to predict into the future, but also trying to take care of all of you now, because it is very important. We know what you have done over the last few years especially. I saw my own children struggling and they had to rely on their teachers. I couldn't help them at that time when they were in high school, and I relied on teachers to help my children, and it was extremely difficult. And I thank you all for all that you are doing, and the fact that the future of our state depends on all of you continuing to do your job and being able to do your jobs well. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of those who came today. And with that, I want to just give Representative Wolgamott and Senator Cwodzinski the last words to close us up. We have about 5 minutes to do so, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission, for the opportunity to present House File 3294. For decades, past lawmakers have been asking teachers to do more and more and more with less and less and less. Not anymore. We need to stand up for our teachers. We need to show them that they matter by passing this legislation and lowering the national retirement age to 64. Now is the time to invest in our teachers, to make sure that they are one step closer to having the competitive pensions package that they deserve. It's the right thing to do for our teachers. It's the right thing to do for our students. It's the right thing to do for the future workforce of the state of Minnesota. Madam Chair and members, I urge your full support.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Senator Cwodzinski.
Thank you, Chair Herr, and members of the committee and testifiers. In particular, I'd like to give a special thank you to Mr. Schulte and Ms. Dayton and Mr. Stoffel. The only math class I had in high school was a class called human math. I have no idea what we studied, but I do know it didn't prepare me for some of the things I've had to learn about words I don't even know how to pronounce. And one of my underlying goals this session was to make Minnesota be a beacon for young families. And, young couples starting out in places like San Francisco and Orlando and New York and Austin, and they're trying to decide, where do we want to raise a family? Who has the best schools? Who has the best teachers? Who has the best infrastructure established for our educational system? And I hope they look at each other and go, let's move to Minnesota. because they have an amazing educational system from birth to whatever, the grave, or senior year, whatever. And I just want to, on a humorous note, just want to say I wore purple today because we're hearing a Prince bill on the floor of the Senate, and then I find out it's actually you guys are all wearing purple for pensions. So I just want to let you know that I did wear this for pensions. And you know, my first year teaching, the number of applicants for my position in the mid-'80s was 250 for one opening, 250. Now, when you talk to principals, they're lucky to get a dozen or two applicants for the same thing that I had to go through an application process along with 249 other people. As you've heard today, people aren't really looking at education as an option, and we need to do our best to make sure young kids that are looking and they love that third grade teacher or that eighth grade teacher and they want to do what that teacher did for them, we want to make sure we do what's right for them. And so teaching is the hardest job I ever loved. And it's an honor and a privilege and a joy to represent the profession for 33 years. And I ask you all for your support on Representative Wolgamott's bill and mine. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, members, for the discussion of this bill and related teachers' pension issues. This does conclude our business for today, but before I let everyone go, I would like for all our teachers, retired and active, to just stand up so that we can recognize you today. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and that concludes our commission meeting for today. And for our members, this should be, we will be giving further notice for future meetings, but for now, this concludes our regular meetings for this session. Thank you so much.
Committee, we're trying to figure out where the money's coming from.